All right, so hello and welcome to another live stream. So in this live stream, we are going to talk about image downloads. So image downloads is very interesting because there is already a middleware, there is a pipeline which is built into Scrapy. So we can actually use that pipeline to download the images. But the problem is that the file names which are created are not really useful. So in today, what we are going to see is how to download the images from a website, how to rename them, and we are going to rename using the product names. So that's what we are going to do. And we will also see how to get a clean output, right? So these are the things that we are going to cover. So let's get started. So the site that I've chosen is this site. So it's built on my Shopify basically, and I don't think it has been used by someone. So there are only 132 products. So this will be a good site, and there is one more reason why I chose this site actually. So if we scroll down, see what happens. This site has infinite scroll, right? For pagination, the site is using infinite scroll. Okay. So, but there is one interesting thing, and probably it will apply to other sites as well. It can apply to a lot of sites. So let's start with writing the basic scraper. So scraper, doesn't matter. Anyway, so what we are going to do is we are going to visit this page. So this is going to be our start URL. Then we are going to collect the URLs of these products. So if I go to this product, so here we will collect some details. So maybe for learning purpose, just this product name and the price, that should be sufficient for today. And then we will also collect this image URL. So this image URL is required because we will be downloading the images, right? So now I'm going to show you some tricks about how we are going to do it. Hello Hirsch and hello GCU1. All right, so what we are going to do is we are going to start with the analysis. So I've just pressed F12 to open this developer tools, and I've zoomed in quite a lot. So maybe, yeah, this should be good enough. So what I want to show you is like whenever you are doing the analysis of the site and you see that this kind of dynamic site. So I mean, if you have seen my other videos and if you know how to monitor the network request. So let me close this overview. So now if I scroll down, you can see that, okay, more and more products are loaded dynamically. So we can examine this API, but there is one more thing that we can try, and that is disabling the JavaScript and see how the site looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control Shift P, P as in Paris. So we have this command palette which opens up, and we can just start writing disable. Okay, so let me just a second. Okay, so Control Shift P, and yeah. So when I start writing disable, the option disable JavaScript, it shows up. Okay, so now the JavaScript is disabled. Now to see the changes, we'll have to reload this page. So now the page that we see is when the JavaScript is disabled. And this will always be the page that Scrapy actually gets it, right? Now if we see this page, we can still see that there is listing, but now this is the interesting part. Okay, so notice that the infinite scroll pagination is gone. So see how useful this trick is. If a site has no script tag, if the site has a fallback mechanism where they can still render the content when there is no JavaScript, this can be useful for us. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to use this trick, and we will have basically, now we don't have to deal with dynamic content. So we can just click on next button, right? So this next button, again, if we look at, see, this link button at the next button is simply anchor tag. Okay, and this anchor tag, how we can locate? So inside anchor tag, we have this SVG. So SVG is just for showing that image, and then we have a span. So we can look for this next page, right? And then once we have this, we can go one level up. Now, when we have to go one level up, this is where the CSS selectors are not going to be useful. So if you have to traverse up in the HTML, this DOM basically. So if you are able to find a span, but this the actual URL of the next page is actually in the anchor tag. So we have to go one level up, and using CSS selector we cannot do that. So we have to use XPath. So this is where we see that XPath is more powerful, but of course I recommend that you start with CSS selector because CSS selectors are easier. All right. So with this in mind, let's look at any of the product page. All right. So this is the product page, and we remember that we already have JavaScript disabled. So now if you recall how it looked when the JavaScript was not disabled, and there was this zoom button. Okay, so let me show that to you. So if I again enable JavaScript and reload this page, so let this page reload. Okay, I don't know why it is taking a lot of time to reload. Anyway, so once it reloads, we will see that this image is actually containing a zoom handle, and finding that particular image is going to be a little bit more challenging. So right now there are no problems because we will be disabling the JavaScript. So now we are ready to start with our command line. So now we can use the terminal and create the Scrapy project. Now if we want to, usually whenever I show you Scrapy projects, Scrapy spiders, I show you standalone spiders. So we directly start with a gen spider command. But now because we have to use item pipelines, so because we have to use pipelines, what we are going to do is we are going to start with a project. Okay, so how do we create a project? Scrapy, by the way, if you can just write Scrapy, you will see all the available commands. Okay, so this is the command that we usually use, but today what we are going to do is we are going to use start project. All right, so let's run that. Scrapy start project. Okay, and let's call this, I already have download images, so I'm just calling it DL images. Now one thing that you must remember is that you should not use image or images anywhere in your code whenever you are working with downloading images. All right, because image and images, these are keywords which are reserved for internal use. So do not use image or images in your class name, variable names. It will create unexpected problems and it will take a lot of time. So now we have created a project. So a project is nothing but, so let me show you how a project looks like. So yeah, so this is how a project looks like, right? So there is a DL images. Inside that again, there is DL images. And then we have spiders, which is blank. There is only the initializer module, which is again blank. There is items.py. So this is again, it gives you an idea about how the structure should be. There is middleware. There are some default middleware structures. So pipelines are there, settings is there. So some predefined settings, and there are a lot of settings which are commented out. So if you're not familiar with the Scrapy projects, this will be a good idea. Just go and have a look at what kind of code is being written. Oh, by the way, I try to make these live sessions detailed. I will be probably posting, a concise, a brief of this particular same concept as 5-10 minute video. So let's make it interactive. If you have questions, just go ahead, ask me. All right. So now we are inside the project directory. So this is where we are going to write Scrapy Gen Spider. And now again, don't use images, right? So what we are going to use is, let's say, products. And the fourth parameter is supposed to be the start URL. I'm just putting an X. Okay. And let's open that in VS Code. It's already open. So now this products.py file has been generated. Okay. So at this moment, right now, we don't have to look into the details. So I'm just going to hide it. So yeah, Control B is the shortcut to hide it. And Control Shift E is the shortcut to bring this editor and the files. Okay. So Control Shift D will bring up debug. Control Shift E will bring this editor, which will show you all the files. And Control B is going to hide everything. So these are some useful shortcut, and as you move along, probably you will remember them. Anyway, so now what we have to do is we have to work with the site. So let's come back here. So I'm going to take the raw URL. I'm in the first URL. So copy this URL. Okay. Probably let me move this terminal here. Okay. So this is going to be the start URL. Okay. And this domain, allowed domain, is not very useful. So I'm just going to remove it. Allowed domain is very important in case of crawl spiders, but for regular spiders, it is fine if you're running a controlled loop, right? So now we just have to quickly create a selector which will select all these 8 products. And so basically we just want all the anchor tags, right? So A is for anchor. So yeah, so this product card, this looks interesting because each, so what I'm going to do is Control C. Okay. And in fact, we can, yeah, I'm just using Control C to take this particular product card, Control F. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with XPath today entirely. So let's use a double slash and then asterisk or star for matching all elements. And remember that there were some other classes applied as well to that particular div. So we could have actually looked for that div also, doesn't matter. But we cannot directly say @class equal to this. This will not work because that div contain more than this class. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to make use of contains function. Again, I did a live on not @div. I did a live on XPath. If you have any doubts related to XPath, just go and watch that video. Okay. So now we can see that this is giving us 8 results. Okay. So this is a good XPath. Now inside that XPath, let's put /a. Okay. And this contains the links to the all products. So now this is a good XPath selector. So let's come here. So inside the parse, let's now what I was thinking is, instead of writing the entire code, maybe I can paste in the part which I believe you are already comfortable and focus only on the images part. How does it sound? Let me know in the chat. So probably, you know what, I've already written the code for this particular project. So I can copy paste some of the code which is not related to the images itself. All right. So I'm going to copy this part. So it will save us some time, and it will be easier to focus only on the part which is actually useful. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the same XPath that I just showed you. Okay. And I've added @href because we want to extract the value of href attribute. Okay. And now we have two ways to either we can use response.follow. So if we are using response.follow, we don't have to actually convert those links into absolute links, right? So I've just skipped that response.url join part, and I've created this self.parse product. Okay. I've not yet written the next page logic. We will do it later. So always remember that whenever you are working with any spider, start with a smaller set. Okay. So what we are going to do is only for the first 8 pages, we are going to first 8 products, we are going to write our code, and towards the end, when we know that everything is working fine, then we will add the code for the pagination. All right. So what I'm going to do now is, okay, so this function actually I'll have to explain what I'm doing. So this is the parse product function. Okay. Now let me show you what we are going to do here. So whenever we want to export, did you examine? Yeah, of course. Let me show you how do we examine. Actually, GCU1, there are few pointers that I would like to provide you. Okay. So always look at robots.txt. So I'm opening facebook.com. Okay. So you will see something interesting here. So any site slash robots.txt. So you should always check whenever you want to, if you're scrapping and you want to make sure that you are not breaking any terms and condition laid out by that site. And you can see here in case of Facebook that collection of data through automated means is prohibited unless you have written express permission. So it's very clearly saying that you are not allowed to scrap Facebook. Okay. And for some other user agents, so remember that we pass user agents. So we are actually supposed to pass actual user agents. We are supposed to identify ourselves. So for Apple Boot, they have some, for Baidu, for Bing and all those, they have certain rules. Okay. So if I go to, let's say, eBay, eBay also is, yeah. So again, the use of robots is not allowed. Basically, that is what it is saying. Okay. Now let's go and look at Amazon. Now in Amazon, you will see that there is no such notice. Okay. So this is kind of, okay, should be fine. Scrapping should be. Okay. So this is like your first barrier when you should not scrap. But there is one section. Okay, I wanted to find that. So for example, here, if you look at this, disallow GP wish list. So you are not allowed to scrap wish list items, for example. Okay, so it's very clear. So this is more, this robots.txt is actually for automated scrappers, crawlers. So all these search engines will actually look at this. So these particular asins, these are specifically disallowed. So this Amazon is very, this ethos spider, whatever it is, Amazon has clearly, put a disallow rule at the root level. So this is one thing, but you should also look at terms and conditions, right? So every site will have some terms and conditions. So you should go and have a look that they are okay with scrapping, or they are, in fact, it's usually works like that. If, as long as they are not explicitly denying it, should be good to go. And even after this, if you want to go ahead and do scrapping, then there are a lot of things actually, that's why scrapping is usually considered a gray area, right? So let's come back here. So I actually lost track a little bit. Okay. So now we are on this particular page, right? So from this particular page, we have to get some information and return it, right? Because typically you will be working with complex. Oh, by the way, if I go to settings.py file, which is generated here, you will see that the robots.txt obey is set to true. So by default, now this is applicable only whenever you are working with the Scrapy projects. So if you're working with Scrapy projects, the first request will always be sent to robots.txt. And if there is something which is in deny, you will not, your parser will actually not go there. Okay. So this is by default set to true. If you want, of course, you can set it to false. And you can see that you are identifying yourself as this particular bot. Okay. So this is the default setting. Of course, you can overwrite any setting. Now let's come back here, and now you have to, in the parse product, typically you will be returning some information. So if we come to this site, from this site, typically you will be returning the product title, the price, there may be some other information here, and there will be images. And all those information you will be typically, exporting in CSV files, or so you will be probably saving this in database. So you will be doing something, right? So you will be doing something with that data. But if you want to download the images, then we have to get this URL of this image, and then we have to export it, right? So let me show it to you, then it will become more clear. So what we have to do is I'm just clicking on inspect, or of course we can drag this and put it here. So what we have to do, see this no script. So inside no script we have this image. So in fact I see one ID here. So whenever you see ID, you can use ID. So ID is usually the safe way to create, whether you're using CSS selector or anything, or XPath. So we can probably just copy XPath and let's paste it here and see. Yeah, so it's a very simple XPath and we don't have to worry much, except there is one thing. Notice that this is SRC is starting with double slash. Okay, so double slash actually means that it will work on HTTP and HTTPS, but this is not a valid URL scheme. So this is where you will have to use response.url join, right? So let me work it like that. So image URL is going to be response.xpath, and the XPath is going to be this, and slash, and this image actually is contained inside this SRC, right? So @src. Okay, now notice something. Even though I am extracting only one image, I'm using get all. Now this is really, really important. It is important that you create, it must be a list of URLs. Okay, so it should be a list of URLs. Even if you are scraping only one URL from a page, it has to be a list. So this is something very important. So we can actually leave a URL hint like that. So this has to be unused variable. Okay, fine. But this has to be a list, and this is very important. Okay, so we might be needing for example, some other things. So let me do one thing. But remember that all the images, or this one specifically, we still need to call response.url join. But typically, if you are collecting more than one images from this page, then you'll have to use a for loop, right? So let's use this. In fact, this is where I'm taking a shortcut here, because I want to focus on important concepts, right? So I'm copy pasting some code here. Okay, probably I can leave this out. Okay, and let me walk you through what I'm doing here. So this is the same XPath which I just showed you. Okay, and we are calling get all function. So it is going to return Madhav, the answer to that question is, if a site is forcing you or stopping you from scrapping by using Cloudflare, then you should not be scrapping it. I know it is not the answer that you were expecting, but this is the truth. If a site is saying explicitly saying that please don't scrap, then you should not. So this is the real world answer, and educational answer is still that Cloudflare. I last time I checked, there was no way to break Cloudflare. There was no way to bypass. And usually, personally, I just avoid the sites which. Oh, by the way, here is another tip for you if you are applying to freelancing jobs. So, uh, if you're applying to freelancing jobs on Upwork, so I always ask for the site that needs to be scrapped, and I do my analysis on that site before submitting my bid. Or even if I have submitted, I mention it very clearly that this is a placeholder, and it's a placeholder, and I will confirm only after I have analyzed the site. And if a site is already posted in the job posting, then I'll do some analysis. Only after that I will apply for that job. And if it is protected by Cloudflare, then I don't. I just ignore that job, or I do not apply, okay, or I do not accept. So I work outside of work as well, but if it is some kind of protection is there, and then I don't take up that job. There are plenty of jobs available. So initially there is some kind of, it takes little bit of time initially. But anyway, very soon you will realize that most of the work that you do with web scraping is this web scraping is just one part of the project, and there are a lot of other things where you have to connect the dots. All right. So yeah, so there are a lot of other things. Like recently I was talking to a client. I'll tell you, he's my Harsh. I've mentioned probably in this other videos also, and I'll mention it again. I'll tell you how you get clients. Very simple. You go and create a profile on Upwork, and whenever you are creating the profile on Upwork, you put as much details you want. Okay, so as you can rather. So put as much details, and don't just create a placeholder resume. So, in fact, even one of my friend who has like 15 years of experience, his profile was rejected by Upwork that you are not a good fit for our platform. The reason he just created a dummy profile with not much detail. So put as many details as you can. Create a profile. Once it is approved, start searching for web scraping. Okay, search for web scraping, look at the jobs that are being posted here on Upwork, and try to find the jobs where not everyone will mention the website directly in the job posting itself. So what you do is you try to find the jobs which mention the site, take that site and try to solve it. That is your practice. Okay, so this is applicable for those who just want to get a lot of real life scenario. Okay, even I do it sometimes. See, I actually do it. I just go to a work search for web scraping and find the jobs which actually contain the actual URL to the sites, and I try to solve them. If I find it interesting and if it is paying well, it's passing all my criterias, then I will apply. And whenever you are applying, please apply a 100% personalized application. Don't try to don't try to be the first one to apply. Instead, what I do, my most of the successful applications on Upwork have been where I applied with samples. So write a scrapper, it doesn't take much time. Okay, write a scrapper and scrapper, oh man. Okay, so write a scrapper, run it at least on first page or two pages or whatever. Send, create a Excel sheet or spreadsheet and send that. Okay, I've written the basic code. This is a sample, and then make it very very personalized. Go and check the posting. Upwork actually has the Upwork actually mentions the location of the person from which place he is. Do some Google, even if you don't know the place. Okay, just Americans especially have, with Americans specifically, weather is a good starting point. So, you can always open the conversation about weather, that I noticed that you are in this city, the weather is good or bad or whatever. And then you talk about your job. Don't talk about yourself. Don't say that I have 15 years of experience or 5 years or 5 months. Don't say that. Say that. Okay. So that's not. I don't like, for example, even when I post on Upwork as client, when I'm looking for people, I don't give a damn about what kind of educational qualification or experience that person is having. I want the solution to my problem. So if you can talk only about the problem that the client has posted, and if you have some idea about how you can solve it, and if you're also providing a sample of the data, so maybe it is just partial sample, that even then you attach, okay, just try to find, look at the reviews. So typically reviews will, Upwork directly will not show the name of the client, but when freelancer leave a review, they will leave the name of the person many times. So, address by name. So these are the small things. So these will increase your chances for success. I think it was enough. So it was a big gyan, as we call it, as we Indians and specifically Hindi speaking Indians, we call it. So the Guruji has given a lot of gyan on Upwork, and I do not have any Telegram group. Actually, it's impossible for me to provide one-to-one sessions or one-to-one answers for now, at least. So I have a lot of things in pipeline. So probably there will be something for my paid courses. So it's not possible to, reply to everyone, but probably for paid courses, I will have some place where there can be a group or something. Anyway, so let's come back to the problem in hand. Uh, Sorry, I was just taking a time to read all the comments and making sure that I'm not missing anything. All right, so let's come back here. So now what we are yielding here is a simple dictionary. Okay, so this is one way of returning the data. So we are returning the title, and I've added normalized space. Okay, so that all the new line character, tab characters, extra spaces, those are removed. Okay, and then price also contains spaces, so those things I have removed. So this is the XPath for the price. I'm going, okay, so I've already posted this on GitHub, so don't worry about XPath and all those things. What is important is this field is very important. It has to be image URLs. It cannot be images URLs. You cannot put S here. It will not work. It will not work. It has to be exactly image URLs, and it has to be a list. So this is very important. Okay. So this variable name, this has to be exactly like this. And this has to be a list of full URLs. They cannot be relative URLs. They have to be absolute URLs, and it has to be a list. So this is the most important part. And if you like to work with items, so if I go to items.py file here, so right now there is nothing. But if you want, what you can do is you can use this items file as well. Okay, so let me show you if you want to use items file as well. So I'm just trying to create, yeah. Okay, so what we can do here is, so in case you are working with item files, then you'll have to create two fields, image URLs and images. So if you're, this is something that you need to remember. So if there is a situation where you are working with items, then you will have to equals scrapy dot field. In that case, it's going to be two fields. So these two fields have to be there. These two fields have to be as it is, no change. You're not allowed to make any change. Okay. Rest of the things you can name them anything that you want. It doesn't matter. But these two have to be there as it is. Okay. So this is our products py. So this is done, and you remember that we do not have a pagination in place. So we are only scrapping as of now only one. Okay. So let's see one thing. So let's run this spider and see the output. Okay. So Scrapy list will give you a list of all the spiders that you have in the project. And then if you're working with the project, then you have to use crawl. Now you don't use run spiders. So products. Okay. Okay. Typo. Scrapy. So now there is of course a lot of output. So let's do one thing. Let's set the log level to warnings. So you can write warning or just warn, and let's send this to products.csv. Okay. So we will directly go and look at products.csv, what we have there. So Control Shift E will open this panel. Let's look at this, and Control B will hide it. So now we can see that we have title, price, image URLs, and link. Okay. So this image URLs is this huge URL. So again, you will see that if there are more than one URL, they will be listed here. But right now we only have one URL, so that's okay. And this link, I have kept it for debugging, right? So typically you will not be sending this. Now you need to make sure that your output contains this field. Your output must contain this image URLs as it is. So this is the first step. But you will probably not want your image URLs in this file unless you are working on something very specific. DWD, yes. If you're ideally speaking, if robots.txt is specifically denying that you should not scrap that, okay, then the site is specifically telling you that don't come and scrap this site. It's very clear. But still, I mean, if you talk about the legal issues, then the legal issues will depend on your local country laws, and it can be, a little tricky. But so basically you just need to know what you are doing. So if your client is having, if maybe robots.txt is blocking it, but that person who's having an account is specifically granted that permission. So think of it as that way, that maybe Google or Gmail, for example, let's say, or in fact, let me take even more practical example. So let's say there is this website which is maintaining, okay, because I'm looking at a monitor. So let me take this part. Let's say that I'm a monitor distributor, okay, and I collect monitors from BenQ, from LG, from Samsung, all these brands. So there is this website which maintains my inventory, okay. So whenever I want to check the inventory, what I have to do is now think about this from a client's perspective. So let me show my face. Yeah, okay. So now imagine this scenario, and this scenario what I'm giving right now to you is a real world, okay. So I'm just changing few things here and there, but I'm very practical I'm talking about. So this client has he's a supplier of monitors. So every time he has to check for inventory, he has to log into 4 different sites. So he has to log into BenQ site, LG site, Samsung site, and he has to check for the availability, for the inventory for all these monitors. And then he has to download all the files in his local machine, and then he has to create his own system of maintaining Excel sheet or his online system or whatever. So now, technically speaking, LG and all these sites which maintain the distributor information, they will not allow for web scraping. Okay, you are legally not allowed to do web scraping. But this person is using his user ID and password to log into the site. Okay, so this person actually has rights to access this site, whether he's using a Python script or using a browser. So now from the gray area, you are actually coming to the white area where it is legally allowed. So the site itself is not allowing, but for that particular client, it is okay to scrap that site. Okay. So this kind of, so these are like always gray area. That's why web scraping is always gray area. And what I typically recommend is you start with web scraping, master it, and then move on to other things where you are actually incorporating this data. So whether you want to take the data science route, you want to take the web development route, or you want to take the desktop development route, so you can take any of these routes. Okay. So web scraping is always the first step and the easiest step. And of course, there are some jobs where web scraping is the only thing that you will be doing. So, okay. It depends on the machine, Madhav. So if there are a lot of things which do not allow use of a Docker. So using certain old machines, using Docker is a nightmare. So, but of course, Selenium will work fine. In general, if and usually, let's say there is a project which is using microservices that is already using Docker. So you are already using Docker for a lot of things. So using Splash is not a problem. So, but if my machine is allowing me to use a Splash, and if there is only one page, typically what happens is on the home page, wherever you have to gather all the links when in the start URL where you have to collect all the links, only that page is dynamic and rest of the links are not dynamic. So there is one page where you have to use, you have to do the rendering. Then in that case, Splash is fine. But again, that will depend if you are using, then if in case you are using Scrapy, in case you are using proxies, then you have to see what your proxy provider is, you know, what are the things that your proxy provider can support. So again, depends. So there is no definitive answer to anything. You're welcome, Carlos, and I hope that my videos are helpful for a lot of people. And like the whole idea of web scraping is that uh, I actually started making this video before this pandemic, but I was not very regular, so I was just releasing some of the videos and not doing it routinely. But specifically, this pandemic has taught us that there are shortage of jobs. At the same time, there are a lot of new jobs which have come up. And a lot of people are coming into the field of coding who are not from the background of development like me. Like I've been writing code since 95, I guess. Since 95, I've been writing code. So I've, I have a lot of experience in writing code. I've worked as software developer for many years. But not everyone is that much fortunate. So when I picked up Python, it was much easier for me. The only thing was I was putting semicolons everywhere, so I had to forget that. So I have to, but yeah, picking up Python was very easy for me. I was not originally a Python programmer. But if someone is starting new, I start with the default one. Okay. So let me complete what I was saying, and I'll come to you, Madhav. So So typically what I recommend is web scraping is something which is very easy for beginners. So as a beginner, it's very easy to start with. Okay. So you can start with Python very easily. You can start with web scraping very easily as compared to many other technologies. So if you want to go into web development or machine learning, you'll have to learn a lot of things. But web scraping, you don't have to learn that many things. Of course, only with time and practice you will learn new things. So I start with the default 16 concurrent request, and depending on the website, because like for example, Amazon has huge servers, so they can handle quite a lot request. But if there is already a small website, then I will not increase my concurrent request, because I will actually be bombarding that site. And the only rule of web scraping that you must follow is do not harm the website. So take care of your website apart from your local machine capabilities as well. Okay, so let's give the discussions a break here. Otherwise, we will not be able to complete this topic. Okay. So probably, Gmail, don't try to log into Gmail. That's not going to work out. Try to use the IMAP interface. So think out of the box. Don't scrap Gmail. Use SMTP or IMAP. Okay. All right. So now we have collected the image links, this IMG links. Now the next step is using the IMG pipeline. So of course, nobody remembers, right? So you do a simple Scrapy images pipelines, okay? And look at the documentation. Even I look at docs, okay? Many times, very commonly I look at docs. I don't have to look for docs for everything, but yeah, a lot of things. So I'm just zooming in. So this is the standard one. Okay. So this is, by the way, one more warning here. This, apart from Scrapy, you have to install a Pillow as well. So what Scrapy does is whenever you are downloading images, so let me install, I think in this virtual environment, I have not installed pip3 install Pillow. So you will get some warnings related to Pillow or PIL, capital PIL. So you will receive only warnings. In the previous version, it used to error out. Okay. So it used to error out, but now it just gives you a warning. And because of this long log, you will probably just ignore it and we will wonder why it is not working. The Fallen Gaming, welcome, man. So you need to install Pillow as well. So this is a word of warning. Okay. Now you need to put this images pipeline. You can just simply copy and put it in your settings. So by the way, if you're using Visual Studio and if you have hidden, either you can press Ctrl Shift E for Explorer and you can come here and go to settings, or the other thing that you can do is you can press Ctrl P. Okay. And then you write here settings and you'll jump to this file. So here you can just paste in this line. So by the way, the structure of item pipelines, you will find it in the settings as well as commented line. So here you can see, right? So here you can see that, okay, pipelines, item pipelines, you have to write like this. So for images pipeline, the readily available images pipeline is already there. So this is one setting that you need. And the second setting that you need, which is also listed on the documentation, where is the documentation, is the file store. Okay, not file store, images store. Downloading the images and files is very, very, very similar, but it's almost the same. The only thing that you will do is instead of images pipeline, you change it to files pipeline, and there will be file store or images store. So it works very similar. All right. So if you know how to download images, you know how to download the files as well. So if you want to download zip files or exe files or some other files, you can use files pipeline. So this is the directory. If you do not give any path, then of course it will be created. This directory will always be created if it is not there. All right. So these are the two things it requires. So now that's all actually. So if your spider, this is the spider, if it is sending IMG image URLs, then that's all you need to do. So let's run it. Okay. So Scrapy, in fact, we did it earlier, right? So let's run it. It is going to, now we don't need to send it to product. So I'm just removing it. Okay. Warning, disabled images pipeline. It requires installing pillows. So we did install Pillow. So probably what it is doing is I'm just opening a new tab and I'm uninstalling it from the system level. from the user level rather, pip uninstall pillow. It is not installed. Okay. Control tab. We did install pillow, right? Desktop download images venv. Why do we have this error then? Pip list. Pillow 8.4 is already installed. So I'm going to do something actually. So what I'm going to do is I've come out because I don't want to spend much time on this error. So I've just deactivated my virtual environment. Okay. And I'm running the same command again. What could be the error? Where is my Scrapy? Okay. Let me quickly see. Let's create one more virtual environment here. This is my shortcut, by the way. And you can create shortcuts like this. So pip install. In fact, if I don't run pip install just pillow, I think it should be able to pick up Scrapy. Install. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install wheel as well. So probably it will make. I'm on M1 and on M1 Mac, Anaconda is not stable. So that's the reason I'm not using Anaconda. This is going to take some time. So let's try to run it directly from Visual Studio Code. So now how do we run from Visual Studio Code? So there are multiple ways to run it from Visual Studio Code. Let me show you one way. So you just press F5, okay, or go to run and start debugging. So it will show you what kind of debug configuration you want. So choose Python module, okay, and enter your module name. So that module that we want to run is products.py, okay. So I want to create launch dot. Why is downloading OmniSharp? OmniSharp is required only for so just create let's call this Scrapy. Yeah, so the Control Shift B. So what I'm doing here is I'm running Python module Scrapy and I want to pass some arguments. So the arguments that I want to pass is crawl. Okay, this is the first argument. And the second argument that I want to pass is the name of the spider. So help me, VS Code, help me. Come on. Yeah. So file base name, no extension. So these are the two arguments that I want to pass. So Scrapy, crawl, and this. Okay. So I've just created a launch.json file. Okay. So now I should be able to run. Okay. Start debugging. Let's see if it gets show some error. Crawl. What's wrong? Because we are not inside the project. cd dl images. So I'll have to cd into that directory. Current working directory is workspace folder. So actually workspace folder and then dl images. Okay, so let's run this. So if I'm going too fast, just let me know. So I just want to quickly see launch. I have to run it from here. So this file should be active. Okay, so now this is running. Or did it ignore that? So this is cd info. I just want to see that I don't see that pipeline activated. So that pipeline should have been activated, but okay, this dir has been created actually. So it was just some environment issue. And if I bring it here, come on. Because this is full screen. So let me exit full screen. So these are the images which have been downloaded, right? So these are all the images which have been downloaded. But what is the problem? The problem is file name. So if you look at the file name, so this is actually created using the URL hash. So let me show you how to understand the logic, how it is, how the file names are created and how we can actually make it, turn it into something useful. Okay. So I'm going to delete this dir. Okay. Delete it. dir and its content. So deleted everything. So Control B to hide everything. Command B actually. So my keyboard is actually a total mess right now because I work with Windows and I don't know if it is going to be visible here, but is it flipped? I think it is flipped. So what I've done is I've swapped Control and Command. So yes, it will download only. No, depends. Harsh, depends. See, whatever you send from here. So this image URLs, here you are sending image links as list. So it's a list. So whatever you write here, it depends what you write here, how you are extracting the images. So if you have more than one images here, it will download all those images. And that is the main reason why this kind of structure is actually created. So let me show you this, the image pipeline. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this part. Okay. So let me show you how to personalize and you'll understand this more, Harsh. So probably it should be already clear because this image links that we are sending from here, it's a list. So if you have written your logic in such a way that, yes, image URLs is a must. And if you're, because here you can see that I'm directly yielding a dictionary. And if you're working with the items.py file and if you're using items, if you're yielding items, then you have to add one more field, which is images. Okay. And if this is confusing, anytime this is confusing, I will recommend that you go through the documentation. So don't waste your time on Stack Overflow or anything like that. Just come here. This page has all the information that you need. And in fact, how to send it to Amazon S3 if you're working on this kind of environment, how you can send it to Amazon S3. For that also, I've already created one video and all the instructions are also here. Okay. Interesting idea, DWD. So you can create a flowchart. Yeah, this will be good to have. So every site is unique. Definitely every site is unique, and you just basically you have to focus on learning, right? So what are the things that you are learning? So as you move along with the learning process, the more you learn, the more sites you will be able to handle. Okay, so let's look at the code. So what I'm doing here is you can follow the same steps. Okay, so this we got from the documentation. Copy this, go to the pipelines file. So you can just press Control P and type in pipelines, and there we have it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything. Okay, I've just pasted in here, and what I want to do is I want to create image, my custom pipeline which derives from images pipeline. Okay, so from scrapy.pipelines.images I want to import it. Okay, so I've imported this, and what we can do now is can just hold Command or Control and click on it. So now you have reached the source code. Okay, and how the file path is created. So what we need to do is scroll down, and here there is this file path. So now this file path is the big change. I can't, I'm right now I'm on Scrapy 2.5. The last video which I created at that time, probably I was on 2.1 or something. So now in the recent version, what has happened is we also have item here. So this is going to be very useful. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this file path here. Okay. And I'm on. So let's come to pipelines file, and we are going to write a new file pipeline. So custom, now we can call this anything, right? So we just have to make sure that it doesn't collide with anything. And we also have to make sure that it derives from images pipeline. That's all. And we will paste in this method here. So right now, if we run this code, yeah, one more thing that we have to do is, yeah, let me format this correctly. Yeah. Yeah, so hashlib also we will have to import if we want to use this code, but not actually going to use this line, so not importing anything. So see what it is doing, request.url. So whatever is the name URL of that particular image, it is converting to bytes, and effectively what it is doing is it is using the hashlib library to create hex digest. And if you don't understand anything from this, just the only thing that you want to you should be understanding is each URL is what it is actually doing is it is creating SHA1 hash of this request.url, and SHA1 hash is guaranteed to be different even if there is one letter or even the place of letter, or like if you take a URL, that URL is going to be unique, right? In this URL, U stands for unique. It actually stands for uniform, but still U stands for unique, right? We can practically speaking it is unique. So a URL is unique, so this SHA1 is guaranteed to be unique. Okay, so that's why it uses this SHA1 hash to create this image file name. So what we are going to do is we are going to delete that part. Okay, and what we are going to do is notice here that we have access to request. So if there is something that was passed or sent in the request, we can access that here. If there is something in the response, we can access that. And most importantly, this is item. So this was the new addition, and it makes things much more easier. And even so, what will item contain? If you are whatever you are yielding from this, let me close this. So whatever you are yielding from this is item. So if you want to access, for example, this title, and this is what we are going to do, you can write simply. So Let me close this, come back here. So if we say item, okay, and if we say what is now, we need to make sure that no typos. So let's take this title. Okay, so there we have it. So now we have the exact product title. Okay, so this product title is what we can use to create the file path, file name. So this is going to be something very useful. But there is one thing that you should be remembering, you should be keeping in mind, is that this product title can contain some characters which are not valid file characters, right? So we want this to be converted into valid file characters. And for that, what we can do is, like, we can create a regular expression, depends on what you like. You can create a regular expression and keep only the alphabets and numbers and underscores, or right? Or in fact, what I like to do, just it's Python, it's open source world, right? So let's simply use, so where is my browser? So there is this very useful library called Python Slugify. And in case you don't know what is a slug, so slug is typically what you see in the URLs. So for example, if I go to my site, okay, so I'm opening my site, control enter, remind me later. So if I go to blog, man, I'm not very active. So when I write a blog in WordPress, I just type in this read CSV excellent Scrapy, okay, something like this. And using this, it creates this URL read-csv-excel. So this part is called slug. And this is the library which helps in creating this slug, okay? So you just do a pip installs Python Slugify. I'm not sure I did it already or not, so let's do it again. So yeah, it was not installed. So now we have this installed. And if we look at, so always make it a habit to look at the documentation, right? So there is this phrase RTFM. I'm sure all of you know what RTFM knows. It means, so basically read the manual. So the manual in this case is the official documentation. So always go through official documentation. So there are a lot of things that you can do with Slugify. Okay. And why I like this Slugify is last check-in was 3 months ago, right? So this is fairly maintained. And the build is passing. Okay. So this is on Travis. So if you are into automated builds and all, you know what is Travis. So build is passing. So it's updated library, so it's good to have. So there are a lot of things that it can support, but we don't really need all that. So all we have to do is from Slugify import Slugify. So let's just paste it here, okay, and then all we need to do is call this Slugify method, okay. And we can also, sometimes what will happen is, okay, simply call this Slugify. Is there anything in the Slugify? Okay, we can just directly send this. So this is the easiest method of ensuring that file names are valid. And there is one more property here. So it's not showing up directly here, but you will see that max or length, what was it? Yeah, max length. So it's in small letters. So you can specify what should be the maximum length. Okay. So max length, we can set it to something like 200 or whatever. In case the product name is very long, we can still make sure that the file name is still valid. Okay. So this is going to be my file name. So right now we are working with a single one, right? So right now we are working with a single image per path. If you are working with multiple images, then probably you need to append some random characters so that every image is handled with like that. So in your, what you will have to do in that case is your item is going to contain one single item. Even if you are returning Here we are returning multiple items, but here you will get only one. Okay, so here you will get only one, so you just have to handle one image at a time. So in case you are returning more than one images per page from this path, then you can attach some random characters or leave that hash and just take first few characters from that hash, and this will make sure that all the file names are unique. Okay, and remember that pillow library. So that pillow library is used by Scrapy to convert all the images. Even if it is in some other format, it will be converted into this JPG. Okay, so this is converted into full file name JPG, and notice that's full because actually Scrapy allows for resizing of the images as well. So that's why we have here at the bottom of the page, we had the file path. We also have a thumb path. So this also you can actually, this one also you can override if you want. So this one is, you just have to change only one thing. But anyway, I'm not going into that. So you look at thumb path as well. Okay. So right now I think everything is set. This pipeline is ready to be used. So what we can do is we can use this, and instead of item pipeline, this one, what we are going to do is we are going to use our custom pipeline, and we have to use fully qualified name. So this is something that you can take help from, or just make sure that your file pipeline is here. So pipeline is contained, it's not inside spiders, don't be confused. So this pipeline will be inside pipelines, inside spiders, inside DL images, right? So you'll have to provide fully qualified name here. So let's do that. Okay. So let's write it a DL underscore images dot pipelines dot custom images pipeline, and the priority has to be 1. Okay, if you want to download images, the priority needs to be 1. And look at the dir. So if you want to ask some other questions, just leave it in the comments, and before I wind up, I'll take all the questions. So now I think it should be ready. So where is my terminal? Let's see if this time we are able to run it. There is one last thing that I want to show you before I run actually. Now the problem is that if you want to output this to a CSV file or database or whatever is the flow here, then that image URL will also be sent there. Okay, so if you don't want that, so what you can do is you can come to your settings file. We are already in settings. So in settings, you have to add one settings, and these settings that you have to add is going to be, just 1 second, that is called, what is it called? I just need to recall before I make any goof up. So image, sorry, not image, feed export. So this I always get confused. So this is feed or feeds, that's what I get confused about. So feed export fields. Yeah, so make sure that you are writing it correctly. If you're not sure, then you'll have to, of course, Google it. Okay, and if you're Googling, make sure that the first resource that you're reading is the official documentation. So what this will control is what is going to be included in your CSV or JSON, or if you have any custom storage like database. So what is going to be there in the feed export? So in the CSV file that we want to create, we just want to have title and price. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So in a list, we will just say, make sure that your case and everything is matching here. We just want title and price. So even though we are yielding 4 items from here, the feed which is created, so we'll test it using CSV. So there we will have only these 2 items in this particular order. So if you want price earlier, if you want price first and then title, so you write it in that order. Okay, so we already have everything ready. So let's just run it without debugging. Okay, so lot of output here. So the only thing that matters is we need to check item scrapped count, and we have item scrapped count as 8. Okay, let's look at the folder. So this is the dir. Let's open in Finder. So this is the full, and now you look at the file names. I don't know if I can, I don't know how to zoom this up as list. So probably you can still see that now the image file names, they make sense. Now these are sensible, right? So now all the illegal characters have been stripped and we have all the images. The only thing remaining is adding the pagination logic, and pagination logic should be very simple, right? Because we have the next button. So we just look for next button. If there is any doubt so far, just let me know. So what I'll do is I'll quickly add the pagination logic. So let's go to the site. So this is the site. Let's go to home, not home, catalog. Yeah, so we'll just look for this button. Okay, so this is my page 2. We'll go, if it is found, we will just go to that page. So this part I'm just going to copy paste. So I'm just taking a moment to find the file where I've written this code, and I'll just copy paste. Yeah, so this pagination will have to take care in the parse method. Yeah, so the next link is going to be the span. This I talked earlier in the video. If you were already there in the video from the beginning, you know that I told you that you can look for the span which contains the next page, and then you go one level up. So this going one level up cannot be done using CSS. So this is where you must use XPath. So this dot dot is just similar to going to CD dot dot. So we're just using going to parent and just taking the href. Okay, and then we are converting. So we are using response.follow. So that's why we do not have to convert it into absolute URL. Otherwise, what we could have done is we could have returned or yielded one scrapy.request and response.url. Response.url join and this next link. Okay, and because here in this case, we just want to call the parse method itself, right? So there is nothing else. So parse is always the default, so we have not provided callback here. So we could have provided for readability, but just to remind you that parse is the default method, that's why I did not provide parse method. So this concludes the today's session. Okay, so I'll show you the link where I've left it. I've already checked in the code, so I'll, yeah. So the code is here. So I'm just pasted in the GitHub link. I'll put it in the video description as well. So this is where you can actually go and look at the complete code. And Surya, I have been thinking about starting a group on probably Facebook groups is the easiest one. Most of the people have Facebook. I personally don't use Facebook that much, but yeah, I do have Facebook. So let's do that. So in the next chat, I will drop in a message with the group name. So let's create a group. Let's help each other out. And if there is no other question, probably it's a good time to end the session. So what I want to do is I want to keep Mondays for the sessions, live sessions. Yesterday there was something at my personal end, so I was not able to do live. So today we have the live, and I'm going to post a brief, edited, concise version of the same tutorial as a regular video. Discord, yeah, we can do Discord also. Yeah. Hmm. And that is actually a good idea. I've been thinking about that also. But maintaining maintenance of all these groups, it becomes very quickly it becomes out of the hands. So it's not possible for a single person to maintain all these things. So either you have to put some resources. We'll work out something. So let's work out something. All right, guys. So that's it for today, and see you on next Monday. Okay, same time. I'll see you on Monday with a live stream, and I'll try to post more content for you. And if you have any other ideas for further content, there was one interesting request that I got was about Selenium plus Scrapy. So probably I'll take up that. Bots, not too much interested. I'm not too keen into bots right now. So I'll let's focus on Scrapy. I like I like Scrapy too much. So let's focus on Scrapy and probably yeah. So keep those ideas coming in. Okay. So keep those ideas coming in, and that will be the end of the stream today. And I'll see you guys next time.